We're here in front of the original dairy barn. I believe this barn was built in 1926, and it was used for the main dairy herd until that former beef bull testing station over there was renovated probably just 3 years before the college was closed down. That was renovated as the new dairy teaching and research facility, but this one served from 1926 until about 2012, and then it housed some heifers for a while. There was research going on in here, probably from the beginning, right up until the herd was moved over to the other building. Typically, there were 3 animal scientists working here at a time, did dairy research. Some did beef research. Originally, those testing stations, like that barn over there, was a bull testing station, and there was a ram testing station next to it that were used from the 70s through the early 2000s to compare animals for their genetic ability to grow fast. That was their main purpose. The type of dairy barn here was what's called a tie stall, where there are individual stalls that the animals stand in most of the day. Depending on the weather and the methods of the farmer, cows could be let out into a yard for some exercise every day, but they would spend most of their time tied in a stall, and milkers would be brought to them. And there's a pipeline system to gather the milk, have a plug-in unit from the milking machine, plug it into the pipeline, and the milk would flow to the bulk tank. And tie stall barns had a long popularity. There's still quite a few around, but people who were wanting to sell cows as good breeding stock liked the tie stall because there's an alley behind the tie stalls, and prospective customers could come along and see the animals, particularly at their back end, where you wanted to have their feet and legs and their udder, their mammary system admired, and people could decide which had the better conformation. Did they want to buy this cow or that cow?
And did they sleep then?
Yes, and lots of research has been done on cow comfort. So we were talking about the rubber mats in there before. Different types of bedding, whether it was shavings or straw or whatever, were often discussed. Sand bedding became popular at one time, which would have been really hard on the manure removal system, because if sand gets into machinery, it soon wears it out. What this type of barn was replaced by was a freestall system where cows could come and go to whatever stalls they wanted. The newer barn down there was a freestall system, but with a robotic milking system. So that's the basics of this barn. Up the hill, there used to be an area for calf research. There was a lot of research done on individual hutches for calves to help them not spread diseases among each other, where calves were kept in a barn with cows and all the calves and cows were in the same space. There tended to be a lot of respiratory disease. One of my colleagues here used to do quite a bit of research on calves in hutches, and that was mostly done just up the hill from here, where I don't think there's any buildings left. And the hutches would be outdoors. Yeah, you can just see one, that dark brown building. That was the area where the calf hutch research was done. It was also a feed storage area. You can see a concrete pad there. There was a corn crib on top of that. That used to be quite tall, and there was a big sign on it advertising the college that could be seen from old Highway 16. Looking around from here, just north of here, is a totally open barn now, or open to the south side. That had a lot of different uses over the years. It was a place to keep what are called dry cows and heifers. So cows that aren't milking are dry cows, and heifers are young animals that haven't started to lactate yet. And in the last few years, there was a graduate student who did a lot of her research with calves and calf behavior in feeding and the welfare of calves through different feeding systems. That former graduate student is now a professor at University of Florida, and she was one of the first graduate students of a guy named Trevor DeVries, who was one of just 3 people who were brought on staff here as University of Guelph faculty, probably starting about 7 or 8 years before we were closed down in 2015.